The Supreme Court has just finished one of the most extreme and controversial terms of the modern era, and we can report on the evidence for that. The justice's own conduct drove far more headlines than any time in the past several decades, for scandals from grifting their secret benefits and gifts to Justice Alito's home violating the U.S. flag code in solidarity with convicts who stormed the Capitol. The court's rulings also reveal a blatantly partisan edge. I don't mean conservative ideology, I mean pro-Republican, finger on the scale partisanship. Chief Justice Roberts leading a very MAGA court. It makes up rules. It makes up law on the fly. That's something conservatives had claimed to oppose and sometimes accuse others of. But now you have the unprecedented ruling that helps Trump avoid a coup trial by inventing a new immunity that no other person or president has ever had in American history. By definition, that's new law, not old precedent. Roberts also failing to lead the court into any traditional deference or unity. Let's be clear. Other courts, even in tough times with many clashes, have been less partisan. They have found ways to bring justices together in a compromise or sometimes humble agreements. This term actually saw the highest rate of justices going it alone. That's through what they call concurring opinions rather than finding a broader agreement or consistent legal reasoning. And that means that's happening even when the conservatives agree on their rulings, on what they think the holding should be. Here's how the New York Times put it in one count. These justices in this past term could not find consensus on the rationale, even in agreement. They issued what I just told you about, the concurring opinions at a record rate, the highest since at least 1937, which is how they've often counted it, and probably the highest ever. That is a setback for Roberts. It shows a type of failure and a type of partisanship. It's also, of course, a failure for the justices he leads in the majority, primarily these Republican appointees. Critics say it's a sign that this court does not even pretend to be interpreting one constitution with one lens, because its members are literally making up their own different and competing rationales, and these Republican appointees don't seem to care that the public will see this breakdown, that they can't actually say 5 of them issued a ruling for the same reasoning. Now, if these are real problems, are there real solutions? Well, the court is deliberately insulated, more so than the political branches. No elections, no term limits, no mandatory retirement. Judges are also not typically ever facing the threat of removal for how they rule, for their rulings. They can be impeached for misconduct, and tonight there's rare news on that front. Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez has now issued new articles of impeachment against both Justices Thomas and Alito, citing high crimes in their now exposed practice of taking these huge gifts and then hiding it and failing to disclose and then refusing to recuse, even when, according to the Congresswoman, they had clear legal conflicts. It's a major step. It's the first time anything like this has actually been attempted in over a century. If there is precedent here, it would actually go back to Justice Fortas, who resigned after the exposure of a financial scandal that was smaller than what Clarence Thomas faces today. The justice pocketed about $20,000 in 1969 dollars, and what he took was investigated by the DOJ at the time. When that news broke, well, we checked the archives. The Washington Post reported the justice thus ended what was, quote, 11 days of anguish, personal and for the Supreme Court, that began with this charge that he took, quote, a $20,000 fee from a convicted stock manipulator's family foundation. The Post noting the resignation, first by a justice under fire in U.S. history, was effective Wednesday. Now, that was a different time, and clearly a different standard that justice held himself to compared to today, because after an error was exposed, it was dealt with. Today's justices are unabashed, shameless, as they say, in their grifting, even as they have rulings that make up new law, from ending abortion rights to the decision boosting Trump with a new made-up immunity for these so-called official acts that never existed before. And practically speaking, that ruling gives Trump an extra gift. And this is a court that has some members who clearly appreciate gifts. It gives him those delays that he wanted. And let's be clear, this court did not try to hide the ruling's partisan, pro-Trump bias. Because when the court found that there were certain Trump allegations where Trump was immune, they said, okay, they declared that from the bench. Court ruled that Trump is immune for anything he told his attorney general, even if it may allegedly advance an illegal coup. And then, for allegations that they said might go against Trump, well, they sent those back to the lower courts for a special and lengthy process. In other words, the court says if it helps Trump, lightning speed. And if it hurts Trump, well, that could take years or be thrown out entirely. This is not the jurisprudence of serious people. But on a growing list of issues, these are not serious people. These are not serious judges. This is increasingly, obviously, a MAGA court with MAGA logic, where the spectrum runs from outright grifting and lying, now challenged by new impeachment articles, to these more establishment MAGA rulings that claim to be something else, that try to legally sand off the edges of a now officially autocratic and imperial presidency on the optics, while delivering it for Trump and MAGA for maybe years to come in the legal reality.
Hey there, MSNBC fans. I'm Luke Russert, and be sure to join me, Rachel Maddow, Jen Psaki, Lawrence O'Donnell, Steve Kornacki, Joy Reid, and many more September 7th in Brooklyn, MSNBC Live Democracy 2024. Click on the link for ticket information. We will see you there.